morning everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Assembly with me, Mrs. Wilkinson. Now, I know Mrs. Clements wrote on the newsletter that you may see my famous poodles from time to time in my assemblies. I'm afraid they've gone out for a walk this morning, but I'm sure they'll be back next week, so look out for them. I know Year 2s and Class India have seen a lot of them already. So today I'm going to talk to you about a very important man in history. I'm going to show you a picture of him. Here he is. And here he is making a very important speech. I wonder if you know who he is, or whether your grown-ups know who he is. Well, he is called Martin Luther King. And we're going to find out a little bit about him. And he actually has a day which is celebrated just for him. We celebrate his day on his birthday. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him. We're going to find out about Martin Luther King and why he is remembered because of a national holiday in America. And I know you're sort of thinking, well, why, if he's important in America, why does that matter in the United Kingdom over here? Why are we interested in him? Well, find out a little bit more. So the day that we celebrate Martin Luther King Day is the 18th of January, and that's actually next Monday. But I'm doing the assembly this week so that you can learn about him ready for next week. And that was when his birthday was. He was born actually on the January the 15th in 1929. And in America, they have a national holiday on that day. So who was Martin Luther King? Well, he was born in Atlanta in America. And as a child, he enjoyed doing all sorts of things that you would enjoy doing. He enjoyed playing sports. He learned to play the piano. And he enjoyed going to school. But life was sometimes difficult for Martin Luther King. I wonder if you know why. Think about what you learnt during Black History Month. I know Key Stage 1 did some work on finding out about the life of Rosa Parks and Nelson Mandela. Does that give you a clue? It's because he was African American. And America in the 1950s and the 1960s, life was particularly unfair for African Americans and people of colour. They weren't allowed to use the same facilities as the white people in America. There were separate areas for them, and white people on public transports like buses and trains, they weren't allowed to mix together. They even had to use separate areas of parks and restaurants and even separate toilets to those of white people. And in some states, the African American children weren't allowed to go to school, even in the 1960s, which isn't that long ago. Or they had to go to separate schools. But they weren't given an awful lot of money, these schools, and so they didn't have very many resources. So I want you to just think for a minute and think, is that fair? Think about if you weren't allowed to go to school, or if you and your families had to go to separate parts of restaurants and separate parts on the bus or the train. So I want you to just think for a minute about what is fair. Okay. So why is Martin Luther King famous? Well, he was a Christian and he wanted to make sure that all Americans had the same rights, regardless of their race. That means regardless of the colour of their skin. He became a civil rights activist, which means he campaigned for people to try to make all people equal. That means to try and make things fair so that everybody had the same rights. Now, in 1955, you'll know this, Rosa Parks, who was an African American woman, she was travelling on a bus when a white man got on. And in the 1950s, African Americans would have had to give up their seat to white people. Is that fair? Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. she was arrested by the police. Martin Luther King asked other African Americans to protest peacefully by not travelling on the buses in the city where Rosa had been travelling. They boycotted, that means they didn't use, the buses for 385 days. That's more than a year. The boycott ended when a court ruled that the separate areas of buses for people with different coloured skins should be stopped. Then in 1963, Martin Luther King led a huge march in Washington, which is the American capital. And in front of a huge crowd, Martin Luther King made a very famous speech, and he said, "I have a dream." And his dream, he says this. He says, "I have a dream that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as brothers and sisters." I think that's a really, really important message, don't you? Now, in 1964, Martin Luther King received the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to end all these prejudices against people of colour. The law was changed so that everybody could vote. And it's because of Martin Luther King and others like him, we've learned about Rosa Parks and Nelson Mandela, that people in the United States have equal rights. And that's the same the whole world over. So these people have had a huge impact on our lives in making things fair and equal and right for everybody. So I just want you to think about what Martin Luther King did. He stood up for what he believed in, what he believed was right and fair, so that everybody had the same rights. And it's the same today. It doesn't matter the colour of your skin. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. All those things of where you live, everybody has the same right. And that's an important message of today. Now, there's a little video that I'm going to put on the link for you at the bottom, which shows a little girl who is 10 years old who actually went on the march with her father, and she witnessed all the scenes of all the people together watching Martin Luther King do his famous speech. So I hope you enjoy watching that, and I hope you've learned a little bit about Martin Luther King today and why he was so important, and think about how we can carry on making things fair for everybody. That's it from me for now. I shall see you next week. Bye-bye.